Most of you are concerned about the rising cost of records, but that is not stopping you from buying vinyl. We're talking about that and other results of the Channel 33 RPM viewer survey coming up next. Hi, my name is Frank. Welcome back to Channel 33 RPM, your channel for vinyl gear and more. So once or twice a year, I run a series of surveys on the Channel 33 RPM YouTube page. I ran these throughout the end of December, and I had like 15,000 responses. And as always, the results are very interesting. I'm going to run through some of the survey questions, talk about the results, and read some of your comments. You're going to want to check this out. All right, the first question was, in 2021, did you buy mostly new records, mostly used records, or a little bit of both? And this was interesting. Almost half of you are buying mostly new records. I wasn't sure which way this question would go, because I know a lot of people kind of are into collecting the vintage records and the first pressings and that sort of stuff. But, you know, interestingly, reissued vinyl is really popular, which makes sense because there's a lot of it being pressed nowadays, right? Let's check out some of the comments. Rick wrote, started my collection with used records 20 plus years ago. Now I just want mint copies whenever possible. That's an interesting comment because, as we know, just because you're buying new vinyl doesn't guarantee it is going to be mint or even near mint. Of course, scuffing, we'll talk about this. Scuffing and whatnot is an issue with some new records. But that said, I mean, overall, new records are generally going to be in better condition, right? And Pascal wrote, I never buy secondhand vinyl. Too many secondhand vinyl is in poor shape. Fair point. I was trying to think what I bought, mostly in 2021, and I would say probably 80% of the records I bought were also new. Part of that is just due to the fact that I'm always looking for new music and new bands, right? And new releases. And of course, new releases are going to be on new vinyl, but there's something to be said for getting vintage pressings once in a while as well. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting. All right, next question. In your view, as we approach 2022, what is the number one issue facing record collectors? I don't think there's a surprise here in terms of what the number one issue was. Maybe if there is a surprise, it's kind of surprised by the percentage, the overwhelming percentage of people that selected this as their biggest issue. But I listed a whole bunch here, like rising costs, quality control, scarcity of new pressings, pressing delays, and flippers. But by far, you guys feel that the number one issue facing record collectors today is the rising cost of new and used records. Of course, we've seen that quite a bit this past year, right? But 60% of you, 60, said that is the number one issue. And I agree, that's my number one issue as well. Let's check out some of these comments. In record time with Terry wrote, how about all of the above? Okay, there you go. That's kind of why I put them there, because these are all the issues I keep hearing about. In all seriousness, Terry wrote, every one of those options is turning what was always a fun hobby into a dreaded experience. Oh man, that sucks when you hear people starting to say this is a dreaded experience to buy records. And Rick wrote, prices on new records is starting to get comical. Still buying, just laughing at myself when checking out. I'm glad you have a sense of humor about it, Rick, because prices are going out, but we keep buying, which you'll see here coming up. Next question is 2021 winds down. I'm curious, did you buy more records this year compared to 2020 or less? This is total records, both new and used. And I was somewhat surprised by this. Over half of you said you bought more records in 2021. And I'll tell you why I was surprised, just because what we just talked about, the rising cost of records, quality control issues, all these things that we like to bitch and moan about on this channel, that didn't stop you from buying records. That didn't stop you from buying vinyl. You just dig this stuff so much. Let's check out some of the comments. Brad wrote, with the pandemic, I have been working from home, so I did have a little extra to spend. So yes, I bought quite a few this year. I found myself sort of in a similar situation. I've been working from home mostly now since the pandemic struck. So I've been saving a ton of money, right? Like my downtown parking spot when I went to the office. I'm starting to forget what it was. I think it was like $300 a month I paid for indoor parking, plus gas, plus you go out and eat lunch more often. I don't have those same expenses at home, so I've been saving a lot of money. So yeah, that makes sense. And Daniel wrote, I have issues with buying records online, so I was able to go in person more this year than last year. I guess it's kind of been the same situation here. Last year, a lot of stores were closed or had reduced capacity just because of COVID, and then things kind of got better and things opened up more fully, so it was a lot easier here as well to go out and buy more records in person. So yeah, totally makes sense. I thought this was an interesting question to ask. I asked, about how many new vinyl records did you purchase in 2021? This includes new releases and reissues, but not used records. So I specifically wanted to know how much new vinyl you were buying. So, I mean, the spread here is pretty large, right? Like, 22% of you bought 5 or less records, but check this out. A quarter of you, or more than a quarter of you, bought more than 35 records. So you guys are buying a ton of wax. Let's check out some of the comments. Justin wrote, this was my first year collecting vinyl. Awesome. Welcome to the world of record collecting, Justin. So I kind of went overboard buying up as much as I could. In the first few months, I got nearly 60 new albums. Wow. Okay. Roger wrote, hello Frank, I bought 31 new reissues and 51 used records these last 12 months. My want list is now shrinking awfully fast. Dennis wrote, just started back into vinyl, purchased around 100 albums in 4 months. Holy smokes, Dennis. I have to say some of the reissues do not have the same sound quality I expected. Yeah, that's been an issue. So wow, very cool to see and surprising to see the number of records you guys have been buying. All right, let's catch up now. So at this point, we know in general that you guys have concerns about record collecting, but you're still buying a ton of vinyl. Again, I'm using broad strokes here. This is very general. I was curious though, given all this, what is the most you spent on a single record in 2021? And check out these results. Anything under $20. That's nothing nowadays. That was that was a blip on the radar. But the spending is the spread is pretty wide here. But this is what really caught my attention. 26% of you spent more than $100 on a single LP this year. Did I spend that much on an album in 2021? I don't think so. I think most of the records I bought were pretty reasonably priced this year. Let's dive into these comments here a bit. Bubba Doolittle wrote, MoFi One Step, always worth it. Yeah, once you get into that, you're going to start spending a couple of bucks. But yes, it's always good quality stuff. And the 92 Project wrote, he spent $400 plus. He said, yep, I'm nuts. Hey, sometimes you just got to get those grails, right? I was also curious. I wanted to talk a little bit about quality control because we talked earlier. That was an issue. That's always a concern identified by record collectors. So I was interested to see if that is still a pressing concern, to see how the record labels and the pressing plants are doing or did this past year in terms of quality of their pressings. So check it out. Here's the question I asked. Have you experienced quality control issues with any new records purchased in 2021? This includes scuffed records, warped records, etc. So I found this to be quite surprising because I think it's fair to say the majority, almost the overwhelming majority, had either no issues or some issues, but said it was very rare. Check this out. A quarter of you said no issues. 43% of you said it's rare to have issues. So that's encouraging because things seem to have improved then, right? Like quality control perhaps was way more of an issue a year or two ago. I don't know. And 22% of you said, yeah, about a quarter of your records have issues. And then the kind of numbers really drop off. So, I mean, looking at this, it looks like maybe the quality of record pressings is finally turning a corner because we have had a lot of issues over the years. And just reflecting on my own experiences this past year, I would say too, I found that the quality of records I bought had improved. So if this is true, let's hope that this trend continues. This next question is forward-looking a little bit. I asked, which statement do you most agree with? Compared to this year, in 2022, I will likely buy more records, buy fewer records, buy about the same, or not sure yet. So, I mean, looking at this, it looks like most of you have pretty strong intentions to keep on buying records, right? I mean, so 21% of you will buy more, and 34% of you will buy about the same. So that's 34, 44. Like over half of you are going to continue full steam ahead buying records, and only 30% of you are going to buy fewer records. Let's check out some of these comments. Tane wrote, it would depend entirely on the cost of albums, be it new or old. Legitimate point. And BF wrote, try to buy less records and take my time listening again to the records in my collection. That's important, right? Like sometimes we go down this path. It's like full steam ahead buying all these records. We forget to set time aside to actually listen to the music we have purchased. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I would buy an album or a cassette or a CD or whatever, and I would listen to that thing dozens of times till I had like almost all of the lyrics memorized. And I don't find it do that as much anymore, so I totally agree with BF. It's important to really delve into and appreciate the stuff that we have bought. I mean, where do I stand on this? Will I buy more records next year? I mean, I think it's going to entirely depend, yes, on cost. I've slowed down my record purchases for sure, but also in terms of what albums are coming out. Like offhand, I can't think of many new releases coming out in 2022 yet that I'm excited about. I know there will be, there always is. So I'm going to kind of, before I answer this question, I'm kind of hold back and kind of see what is coming out. And I mean, if there's good stuff out there, if the price is at least reasonable, I'm going to buy it for sure because I love checking out new music. All right, 33ers, those are the results of my viewer survey. If you want to see all the results and all the comments, go to my YouTube page. Go to the community tab and scroll down. There's tons of stuff there, and there are more questions there than I had time to discuss in today's video. Feel free to weigh in the comments below with your thoughts on these questions and let me know where you stand on these issues. Otherwise, I hope you dug today's video. If you did like it, appreciate a quick thumbs up. Until next time, dear 33ers, keep on spinning.